Imagine if this was in your house. Well, one of my subscribers got in touch to invite me around to their wonderful house to set up this organ essentially from scratch. Installed are 4 sample sets: Rotterdam, Nancy, Peterborough and Salisbury. It's my job to set them all up, set up all the divisionals, set up the speakers and everything else that goes with setting up a Hauptwerk sample set for the first time. Be gentle. The very first thing that I do when setting up a sample set is remove all of the Hauptwerk default text. And I bet most of you have looked at this text and thought, what? Imagine going out for a drink with someone, going into a pub and saying these words to them. Primary 0002, out per, purse per 2, front 2, / upper. They're going to look at you blankly. And I look at this text here blankly. The only reason this is here is Hauptwerk giving you an example, giving you a sort of a template, if you like. And what I've done with Nancy, which is what loaded now, is named it in a logical way. So Nancy is recorded in 4 perspectives. So I've named each perspective as it is named in the sample set. So bombard close, bombard front, bombard middle, bombard rear, and so on through each division. We can then route the bombard close to a certain speaker in the room. And what I've done is have a single group for close, front, middle and rear. And what I've done is route the close perspectives from the bombard, the réci, the grand orgue, the positive, all go to the close mix group, okay? And that's done by choosing this checkbox down here. But then this group is just not doing anything yet. It's not going to any speakers. But what this group has done is it's brought all of the close perspectives from all divisions together into one room. So they're all sitting in this one waiting room. The close team is, if we look at the very top on the right hand side here, these are all going to go to the Nancy front. So at this point, Nancy front is told in Hauptwerk to go to channels 1 and 2. That is, oh, this is so complicated, I'm so sorry. Basically, the interface has channels 1 and 2 programmed to these 2 speakers. Channels 3 and 4 are to the speakers behind me, which are set up on the rear master mix there, as you can see, channels 3 and 4. And of course, the good thing about quality and consistent naming conventions is when you start to route the ranks on the organ, so on this screen, at the very top, all of these stops here are the close pedal perspective. And I can very easily, on this rank output perspective 1, that's just a lot of words, again, I'm really sorry about that, I can choose, because these are how I've named them, very easily choose pedal close, which is number 17. And then eventually that filters down to the screen that we just had on here. So it's very neat, very tidy, and you can just see how the ranks flow through. So that's how I do it. How easy is that? When the owner of this organ got in touch with me, I asked what setup he has in place, what speakers he's got. And I was very flattered when he came back to say that he'd actually replicated the speakers that I've got. So he's got the DefTech BP 9600, one there, and one over here as well. He's also got the DefTech. DefTech basically is definitive technology. It's just a short way of saying it. And these beasts as well. These are the D17s, which I also have. In fact, a lot of you would have probably seen that speaker there. That is on the other end of the pedal board. So when it goes onto the pedal cam, you'll often see a speaker, a cone. That is what you see. These speakers will obviously be powering the wonderful rear perspectives, the rear channels. So Rotterdam is loaded up now, and the good thing about Rotterdam is it's only in 2 perspectives, a front and a rear. So we can obviously direct all of the front channels, the front perspectives, to the BP 960s, and then the rear channels will go to the D17s. It should sound fab. There are a number of things which are really important to me when voicing and setting up an organ in a room like this. One of the most crucial things which really can affect and impact the sound is the speaker placement. So one thing I noticed when I arrived is these DefTech speakers. So this is where the organist sits, obviously on the bench. Doesn't go much of a surprise. But if we look over towards the speaker, can't see it. And that means the sound isn't coming to you directly. So these front speakers are giving all of the clarity, the direct closeness. The EQ is going to be brighter from the front because the nearer you are to the sound source, the more dynamic range there is. The further you are away, the tops and the lows sort of get lost in the acoustic. So you want to have a visible line of sight to these any speaker as possible. So I'm going to bring these speakers forwards so they're actually facing towards the player when sitting on this bench. Also really important to have the speakers at an equal distance. That might sound quite obvious, but you need to have them at an equal distance in terms of physical distance and also the angle as well. So to me, actually, this one is a bit further away, so I'm going to bring this one back a little bit. You don't want them too close, because then that's like someone shouting into the microphone like this, and it's going to hurt. You want a little bit of different distance. What I always do is have the organ as loud as it will go. So the full organ is loud. It will encourage you to play and register the organ like you would the real thing. You're not going to go for the great reeds, the great mixtures, and coupled with the choir mixtures as well, which on this organ are very bright. You're not going to go for that all the time. You're going to only use them at the climaxes. On these sorts of European organs, these old consoles, like a Viacol console, you wouldn't find any divisionals like we have here. It doesn't mean, however, that we shouldn't have divisionals on an organ like this. I like to have divisionals on this sort of organ because when I play live, I play hymns, repertoire live, I like to use them in a sort of an English way. All we have to do is manipulate some divisionals by using the scoped. So I'll go ahead and open up the main master scoped screen, open up registration. So I want to tell, however, that the bombard division and the bombard thumb pistons here are going to be used under the scoped combinations of A1 to A8. Let's bring all of the bombard stops on. Let's just check that there aren't any bombard tremulants or bombard octaves. There are not. Press scope, then setter, and then press all of these in order. And that's telling Hauptwerk that anything we set on those thumb pistons will only be recorded against the bombard stops. So what I mean by that is if we have some pedal stops open and grand org stops, and I pressed the set button down here and then bombard thumb piston number 8, it will only program any stops drawn on the bombard, and it will disregard any stops on the pedal, the positive, or the grand org. As I'm selecting all of the Resi stops, I'm also going to select the Resi tremulant, because I want that to be affected by the swell thumb pistons as well. I'm putting them onto B. And now what I can do is, if I can pull out on the Resi, I can pull out the strings. Let's find those beautiful strings and set those onto swell or Resi number 1. Cancel. Press 1. There they are. To allow these thumb pistons here to work with the scoped, there's a little trick to do that and to make it really, really easy. all you need to do is open the master scoped combinations window and right click on A1, auto detect for all organs. That means you only need to do it once, because whenever you load a different sample set, those settings, the MIDI settings, are picked up. If you choose auto detect for this organ only, that's actually very clear. You're only altering those settings for Nancy. So go through them all, press A1, auto detect for all organs, bombard one, because on this organ, the A row is for the top manual, B is for the swell, C is for the great, and D is for the choir. So they work their way down, A, B, C, and D. Press done, and there you go. You only need to do that once. What the owner of this organ wanted me to do was use all the speakers in this room. And with a stereo sample set, it's quite difficult to work out how to use more than one pair of speakers, because by definition, a stereo is just 2 channels. So take Salisbury Cathedral, for example. Salisbury Cathedral only has 2 channels, basically. It's a stereo sample set, whereas places like Rotterdam have more than 1 perspective. Rotterdam has 2, Salisbury has 1. So what I've done is I've actually manipulated an acoustic, a reverb, for those rear channels. And that's just has been done by going into this main mixer screen, creating a rear group, routing all of the divisions to both the front, which are the front 2 speakers, and the rear, which go to the back 2. But on the rear, adding an impulse response reverb. And a little bit of trial and error with these inbuilt Hauptwerk reverbs has led me to use this one, which has a trail of 4.5 seconds, which actually works quite nicely. And I've also been playing around with the pre-delay, which is the amount of time it takes for the acoustic to kick in, as it were, the wet mix, so you can have all that all the way up to 100%, which is entirely wet. But I've also adjusted the level of the wet reverb down to minus 19 dB. In this room, that's a very nice balance. It's playing a chord. You then hear it go all the way to the back, because the reverb here finishes just momentarily before the reverb finishes over there, so you feel the sound going behind you. Here we are in an electric car. This is the Porsche Taycan Turbo S, no less. This is my first ever experience of being in an electric car. And those of you who know anything about electric cars will know that the Porsche Taycan is one of the ultimate electric cars on the market. So to experience, it reminds me of being 14 again. The first cathedral organ I ever learned and played on was the organ of Liverpool Cathedral, the Anglican Cathedral here in England, which is a massive organ. It's one of the biggest, I think the second biggest in the country. There is a rivalry between it and the Albert Hall as to which one is the biggest. But where do you go from playing the biggest cathedral organ in the country? This is like that. This is like you go into this electric, amazing car as a first experience, and it's, well, I don't know whether we're going to go fast or not, but I think it is quite fast. I think this is my first experience. Be gentle.
Hold your camera firm.
God. So I knocked my head in the back of the seat there. That is crazy.
Isn't it?
Was that full launch?
That was full launch, but it slipped because the road's slightly wet.
I've never experienced that before.
No.
The way it just goes from 0 to something miles an hour is like being kicked in the stomach. Wow.
Yeah, the stated figure's 2.6 seconds to 62, but I think it's quicker because Porsche will always understate what it's actually capable of doing.
Jeez.
That's not launch, but that's just acceleration.
Oh no! That was amazing. So there you go. That was where to go from there. Now I've got to drive home in a very lazy diesel after this. Oh, is it for sale? That actually is it, and I'm very pleased to say that's the owner of this organ, much to my relief, is happy with the way it's sounding. I've had 2 full days here doing this, and it's been a really wonderful experience. So Hauptwerk Consultant seems to be the latest string to the BIS bow. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll say cheerio. Goodbye.